a journey with zero distance, a journey within yourself, a journey to your own self, a journey to the ultimate self. The word self, SELF in English, is very important. When we say Atma, we're talking of self. It means the very self, the word is Atma. It's not something separate. The whole Sant Mat is nothing but a journey to discover our own self within ourselves. So that is why we make a huge fuss about it, and we go to ashrams, we go to different seminars, we read so many books about it, we rattle our brain against so many things to discover what? Our own self. Why should it be difficult to discover our own self? What are the hurdles that are coming in our way to discover our own self? The hurdles are not easily identified, though they are very visible. Very visible hurdles. If some hurdle, some problem is visible, we should be able to solve it easily. These are visible hurdles and yet not understood as hurdles. I want to explain to you 3 simple hurdles that are coming in the way of our discovering our own self. First big hurdle is this physical body we are wearing. We think that is a self. A hurdle is called by our own self such a misidentification that starts the whole problem. This is the biggest problem, that we consider the body we are wearing temporarily, and nobody has kept it forever. There are no permanent body that I know of. Most of my colleagues have already left their bodies and gone. So many more are leaving every day. We hear of deaths and deaths. And what is death but leaving the body behind? Masters have left bodies. Great master left his body. Nobody keeps this body forever. It's such a temporary abode. Knowing it is so temporary, we are identifying ourselves with a temporary thing that happens. What a big hurdle it is for us. Clearly visible, used every day by us, and yet we call it ourselves and create a big problem for us on a spiritual journey. If we recognize that we are not the body, but something using the body, we are closer to ourselves. We can be very close to ourselves if we know we are not the body, but who is using the body? Supposing we are not alive, we don't know who we are. Since we know only through the body who we are, we have to discover the truth of who we are while we have the body. If we have no body, we don't know who we are, where we are. So that is why it's a good starting point. This is a hurdle and also a big help. To have a human body is a great help to discover what is inside the body. Who are we? When we are able to perform a little experimentation upon ourselves, namely that we pretend we don't have a body. Well, sometimes you don't have to pretend. You go to sleep at night, you don't even know if you have a body, you have a dream body. Sometimes you have no pretense left. When you die in this body is cremated or buried, and we have no connection with it left at all. Then we don't know who we are. But supposing we have a body and pretend, not actually leave the body, but pretend we don't have a body, what happens? By pretending we don't have a body, we start looking at what else could be there. So since we are using the eyes of this body, the ears of this body, to hear and see outside, let us see if we block the eyes, close the ears, where are we? Well, we suddenly find we are in a state of imagination. We are imagining things after that. Because we are either imagining what we can remember from the past, or we are thinking of something for the future. But a strange imaginative self arises in us. What does the imaginative self do? With our eyes closed, in a dark room, with nothing to disturb us, in a quiet room with nothing that the ears can hear. What do? We imagine things and see them and hear them. If we spend time in that state, we can also see, we can touch them, we imagine flowers, we can smell them. If we have an imaginary food item, we can eat it. In imagination, all these 5 sense perceptions are working. Don't we realize that if the 5 sense perceptions are working in imagination, why did we always think that they are part of the body? Why did we think they are parts of the organs of the body when we can use them without the body? That's a very big point. A very good discovery that we have the self using 5 sense perceptions even when we are not using the body at all. Very simple experiment. You can call it meditation, you can call it introspection, you can call it discovering who your imaginary self is, who your imaginary self, imagining things, is. Nothing could be simpler than that. It's a very good step. But that presumes that you are starting with a journey on what is inside the body, not the body. If you have done that, you have removed a very important hurdle, the biggest problem on the spiritual journey. If you move from there, it becomes easier. Well, not so easy, because we think there's an imaginary self, it's not real. And back in the body again. The moment you call it unreal, imaginary, you come back in the body. Therefore, the hurdle of the body still remains while we are imagining ourselves with all the 5 senses, and we think we have discovered an inner self. We are still attached to the body, and when we call it unreal, the body is real again. We are back to the hurdle from where we started. Let us say we want to forget this hurdle and say the imaginary self may be real. Let's test it out. Let's do things only with the imaginative self inside. The self that exists but has no matter in it, no physical molecules in it, no cells in it, but it can see, touch, taste and smell. Then yes, let's use that body. Let's call it the inner body, astral body, inner self. Let's use that inner self and see what all we can do with it. It's amazing the capacity of that inner self. It can go into past as long as it wants. It can go into the future as much as it wants. It can fly into space anywhere, into any galaxies. Anything that's outside, it can have access to it and more. Why don't we try that? Why don't we try to make good use of that inner self, which we are now calling imaginary, once we start using it without any reference to the physical body in which we are doing that, and of which we are unaware at that time, the physical body that we have left behind as it were, and we are in that state, we are much closer to the self than when we are sitting in the body. One hurdle can be removed. Second hurdle remains. Second hurdle is what we are imagining, we are trying to make it real. But in truth, that is not real either. The imaginary self is not real, and that's the second hurdle. That neither is this body real, nor is the imaginary self real. We have taken a long time, and there are yogis and swamis whom I have met, trying to reach the self through the imaginary self and calling it the real self. But that's a hurdle also to call it a real self, because these are merely functions of the self. To see, to touch, to taste, to smell, all these 5 senses are merely functions of the inner self and of the physical self. You can't call a function yourself. If you have something on which there are functions being performed, you can't call the functions to be the self. Therefore, next step becomes little more difficult and yet simple, that do not consider the sense perceptions to be yourself. Imagine who is using the sense perceptions. When you start going into that level, you discover we have another self inside which we have always been using, and we call it the thinking mind. The mind thinks. Without the thinking mind, sense perceptions have no value. Without the thinking mind, we have no idea how to use even the physical body. We discover that the mind we have, which thinks all the time, is also part of ourself. And we have, for a long, long time, considered the mind to be ourself. Enlightened people have met. People who have reached high levels of awareness of themselves are still considering thinking mind as a real self. And to some extent they are right, because it's a thinking mind that is creating all experiences, which we do not know sitting here, that a thinking mind is not merely working to think about things that are existing here, but it can think of much more. Why are we confining our thinking to what is around us? Because the mind that I'm talking about functions differently when we are using it with the physical body, functions differently when we are using it with this sensory system or the astral body, functions totally differently when used entirely by itself. Therefore, in our scriptures we find the description of a Pindiman, the physical mind, the Andiman, the astral mind, and the Brahmandiman, the causal mind. The causal mind is a creative power that creates all experiences. All experiences which can be defined as an experience arise from the causal mind. But we can have an experience of the causal mind the same way we had experience of the astral self. How do we discover that the causal mind, the thinking mind at that level, with no use of sense perceptions, no awareness of the physical body, can function by itself? We can do the same thing which we did with our physical body. We closed our eyes, plugged our ears, and began to see what sense perception alone can do. Why not do the same thing with the sensory system? Why not close the eyes of the imaginative self, block the ears, block the sense perceptions, and only confine ourselves to watching the thinking mind? It's not difficult, because you can watch your thoughts. If you are able to watch your thoughts, thoughts come in language, in words, and thoughts come in pictures, in images. Look at the images. Look at the words. Listen to the words being spoken by the mind. Look at the pictures, and you will discover who is looking at the picture, who is listening to the word of the mind. That's not the mind. You are looking at it. You are discovering that you are the observer, the listener, not the mind. The mind is another hurdle. The mind is the last hurdle before you can discover who you are. These are the three hurdles on a spiritual journey, and you can overcome them by becoming unaware of them and moving upwards toward your real self. That's the whole spiritual journey, just to cross these hurdles and find who you really are. That is why I say that it is not a big thing to explain it to anybody. I am explaining it to you right now. But to practice it becomes difficult. Why? Because the way our bodies are built to live in this world, they carry some events with them, like birth and death, accidents and rewards, punishments. We have good times, bad times. All those are like a pre-written package of events which we go through. We call it our karma. The law of karma merely sets up a series of events and we live through them. And because of those events happening, we get tied down to them. And then when we are tied down to the events, we see objects and people in those events, and we get attracted to them, and we get attached to them, and the attachments keep us outside here in the physical world. We don't find ourselves. So that is why it is a very important thing to be able to know that the attachments we are creating are an obstacle also. But you cannot detach yourself except by having something to be attached to inside. That is where the role of a perfect living master comes in. Who is a perfect living master? In truth, if I gave a short answer, you may not like it. In truth, a perfect living master is your own highest self. He appears as another person, appears as a human being, because that's how we recognize people in the physical world. When you go to the inner world, he is still there, and he is separate from you. You go to the mental world, he is still there, separate from you. Even if you discover your identity as the life force, the vital force that is creating the mind, he is still there, separate from you. When you go beyond to your true self, he was the true self. That means there was no distinction between the ultimate self and the perfect living master. So he is performing a role to help you to attach yourself inside rather than outside. You cannot practice detachment. You say, I'm detached to something, you are more attached to it. I gave examples many times. That is why a perfect living master is something you can get attached to during this journey of going within, and that helps a lot. Above the mind, nothing else can take us, because time and space created by the mind are ending there. Moreover, there is no way the mind can try something out, because we are going above the mind. So that is why the only thing that takes us above that is a pull coming from the same perfect living master in the spiritual form, whose love pulls us. That is why I often say the path of spirituality is nothing but of love and devotion. Love of the master pulling us, our devotion which enables the pulling to take place. So love and devotion is a secret, and this is the path. We should be able to identify, get rid of these hurdles experimentally, meditatively, by introspection, going within ourselves, and we'll be able to find the true self. And then we'll be rejoicing, because you will discover to your strange amazement that the true self includes everything that you are seeing now. It includes the people you are seeing, it includes objects you are seeing, it includes yourself, it includes all the stages I've described. True self contains everything. The whole drama of creation is taking place within the true self. I am very happy to explain in short what I have been talking of for all my life.